And welcome. And you might be wondering, what is this hellhole? Why all these dead bodies? Well, I had a sale and it was like a total wipeout. I mean, what can I tell? All these deadbeats came around and then they're just laying around. But today we're going to do a little bit of a spotlight on electricity and wiring, in particular of how do you wire things up? What are some of the things you can do? And it's going to be a walkthrough of that, not the whole electricity stuff. I do have basic, advanced, and tips and tricks videos for that goes into a lot of depth of it. I'm going to link those videos below as well, but I'm going to focus on just the wiring aspects of how you wire things up, just so you can get started. So the first thing you want to remember is that you need a power source. So we're going to put down a generator here. You could do a solar power, but that's going to be a fairly late game as well. You do need to make sure that you have some engines and refuel it. And then you turn it on and you can hear it. Well, it's all running. So what do? Well, you go to your generator bank and right click holding your wire tool. Very important. You see now you have this wire and then you right click on the light and well, there you go. It lighted up. See? Light is on, and if I switch off the generator, E to interact, switch it off, you'll see the light goes off. Very simple. And you can see that there's power that can flow because you have the wire that has the yellow pulsating light. If I remove the wire tool, it goes away. Put it back, you actually can see it. Now you see there in the back there's actually some other things that has like a view area and actually shows that through this yellow outline, and if I don't hold the wire tool I don't see that. So really simple, right? But let's back up a little bit. We are talking about advanced engineering, and you need a bunch of these one in order to actually craft things. You don't need the skill in order to use it. If you buy it at the trader, for instance, or a friend gives you something, but if you don't want to craft these things, you do have to spec into advanced engineering. And depending on which level you are, say number 3, you can basically create the electric fences, blade traps, and then 4, you can then create the battery banks and short-range turrets, and then 5 SMG turrets and so on. So it really depends on what you want to do. At least go up to 3 if you want to be serious about using electricity, or just buy things at the trader because you can find them there reasonably cheap. The main thing you need is actually a wire tool, and though you can find it or you can buy it, you can also craft it. So some forged steel and mechanical parts, really simple to do. I tend to find quite a few of this one. Just bring one back for your base. You'd actually only need one because it doesn't degrade. And as I covered, right click gives you this wire, and right click again to place it. Now if you use left click, what happens? Well, let me do left click on this one. Nothing seems to happen. I seem to do something, but nothing really does. But if I do on this one, you saw the wire was removed, and that's because left click will remove the inbound wire. It will not remove the outbound wire. So let me hook this one up, for instance. So now that this one is spinning, if I left click on this one, it'll remove the inbound wire, and because obviously this one doesn't have any power anymore because the power has been removed. So even though there's a cable from the light to the blade trap, it's not going to receive any energy or any power because, well, the power line has been cut in between. So inbound and outbound. Now every electricity item can only have one inbound. For instance, I cannot connect this one to this without removing the previous one. So make sure only one inbound. They can, however, have 9 outbound. So this one now has an outbound to all these 9 lights. If I try on the 10th one, it'll say the power component has the maximum number of wire connections. If I remove this one, turn it off, and let's do that again. Let's turn it off. Then I can then connect the blade trap. So remember, only 9 outbound. If you want more, you basically have to go to another. So if I connect this one back here now, doesn't work. But if I connect from this one, let me switch back and refresh it, and I've connected this one to this one. Now I have everything connected, plus I can then connect the blade traps. So you can use the relays or actually anything else. You can go from this light to this light instead. That would work equally well. So you don't actually have to have from one relay to everything. You can chain them together. One thing with chaining together is that if I go from this one to this one to this one, and this one is destroyed, let's say I take it out, bam, the blade trap actually will stop working as well. And that's something you really want to keep in mind. And you might be wondering, can I just connect this one from here and then 100 blocks that way? No, unfortunately you can't. There is a limit, and it's actually fairly short. It's 15 blocks. So I have one here from this one that is going to go over here, and if I'm good at aiming this distance, it'll connect. right? Sounds good. Now, if I try to do it one further, and let me put this one down here. Let me remove this one. I'll try to connect again. From this one, I hunker down a little bit, and it's not going to connect. It's not connecting because it's too far. 15 max, and that's something that you want to keep in mind. If you need further, make sure you just string in another relay, for instance. When it comes to the wiring, so I have this one, I right click and I get this black wire. Now if I go over here, it gets red because it's being stretched too far. But how do I connect it here if it's stretched too far? Red means you can't actually connect. So if I right click, nothing is going to happen. So it's actually a little bit of a weird way they've been doing it, because red means that it's too far. However, it's only too far from where you're standing. So if I go a little bit back here, it goes black, and now I can actually hook it up. So the only thing that the red wire actually signifies is that you need to get a little bit closer and then aim at whatever you're connecting. And see, black. Now this one will work. Let's go to this one, for instance. I don't really know why they've done that. I think that what they should have made this one longer so you can actually go around, because sometimes you're like, okay, you have blocks in the way and you want to get to this angle before you can connect it, but the wire will be cut because the game will be saying, hey, now you're too far away. You see, if I go up here more than 15, it'll actually just drop the wire. A little bit of a peculiar thing. So just make sure you're standing somewhere in between where you have the line of sight, and then you can connect it just fine. The wire is actually only for show and to see where things are. If I put a block here and I put a block here, everything is going to work just fine. I'm going to connect this one to the blade trap, working just fine, even though it's going through the block. It doesn't matter. So why would you want to put it behind the block? Well, mostly because it protects them. Because if you have a zombie that is walking in this area and you have blocked off here, the electricity is purely safe because this one can't be damaged because it's behind the block. Of course, the generator we're going to have to hide as well. This one can't be damaged because it's behind the block, and that's what you want, because that means the blade trap will continue to run. If you don't have the block, potentially a cop explosion or a zombie walking up to it can actually go and bash it and destroy it, and then you'll see the blade trap stops spinning because it doesn't have any power. And as I walk around here, you might have noticed that as I hover over an item, an electricity item, there's this icon here, or the text that says 20 watt. And on this one, it says 1 watt. On this says 1 watt and it's yellow. Here it's gray. Here it's, well, basically just an outlet. What does all this mean? Well, an outlet means it's a power producer. So that's easy to remember. Now, the yellow and gray actually are really important because they signify whether that item has an inbound power connection that actually can supply power. So in this case, this one is gray, which means there's no power coming on the inbound. So even though this one actually has a connection on the inbound, there's not going to be any power because, well, there is no power here. This one, however, has 1 watt. It's coming from the producer, so it's yellow. If I turn this one off by using a switch or something, it will go gray as well. And that's a further way you can look at it when you're constructing your lines to see, hey, did I hook something up? Do I have a power producer? Because when you turn it on, it should go yellow because that would signify that it's working. This one is gray, which means it's not correct. And that's because it's an electronic timer relay. So if I go from here to there, it'll suddenly spin. Of course, if I set the power here properly during, I guess, up to 6 p.m. now, then it would start spinning, but that's, again, a bit more advanced item. As always, if you're doing any electricity wiring, you're having problems to get things to actually line up properly. It doesn't, it's like you think you wired it, you go from this one, you go to this one, and then you go to the blade trap or the dart trap, and it doesn't work. Try to make it simpler. Make sure that, one, you have enough power, enough output for the power draw that you want to have. Make sure the lines are being properly strung out between them so you haven't missed and hit something else. You haven't connected a light instead of the blade trap, for instance, and then it should work just fine. One small thing I do sometimes, actually, and let me show the timer relay. I have on occasion by accident put down the timer relay. It looks slightly differently, but it's almost the same. This one basically only works at a certain time, start and end time, and that means that if I connect this one, let's see, from here to here and from here to the blade trap, it might actually stop working because the timer is not active. And then you might go like, well, I got the power. It's going to the timer, it's going to the relay, and then it's going to the blade trap. Nothing is working. I got power, everything is on. What is happening? And so double check so you're not using the wrong relay. The timer relay is really nice, but I'm not going to go through that here. If you're interested in further in-depth instructions on guide of how to use basic electricity, advanced electricity, and a bunch of tips and tricks, check my description below of the video, and you'll see 3 videos there that you can go have a look at. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. If you really liked it, subscribe. I'll see you again.
Special thanks to the great patrons supporting the channel. If you would like to join the vetted community and support these videos, do follow the Patreon link.